afternoon, folks. I'm Tim Hudak, CEO of the Ontario Real Estate Association, proudly representing Ontario's 80,000 hardworking realtors, and honored to be here as a longtime colleague of Lisa MacLeod and a former minister in these areas myself. And I do thank all of the entrepreneurs, the senior executives, the people running associations, the mom and pop operators, the largest institutions here across the province, joining us at a very important time. Before I begin, I just want to commend Minister Lisa MacLeod. I think it's been incredible. It's been, I think, 9 of these that she has done with thousands of people listening in, whether it's been tough news, good news, or like we see today, some worsening news. Lisa MacLeod has been there. She has your back. She's been transparent, open, and she's gone to bat for the folks in this sector that represent almost $74 billion in economic activity per year, hundreds of thousands of jobs, and just critical to helping celebrate our province's diverse culture, amazing history, and strong social fabric. I know the minister has gone to bat for the cabinet table. We previously announced on these calls a new funding to help you through tough times. And I thought it was fantastic how Minister MacLeod traveled to every corner of the province this summer, encouraging people to get out and about, enjoy their own backyard, visit neighboring communities, invest here in the province of Ontario. Now, of course, we're seeing some more difficult numbers of COVID, some more restrictions that have us all concerned. I think it's, while not great news, I do want to say it's amazing the minister is doing this call to letting know what that means for you and her plans. So here with some opening comments will be Minister Lisa MacLeod. I will say again that if you do want to ask a question, we usually get through a ton of questions to the minister. Just press 3 on your phone. Again, 3 on your phone. We will queue you up. And a number of you did send in questions in advance, which I get to. Now I'm honored to introduce the Minister of Heritage, Sport, Tourism and Culture Industries, Minister Lisa MacLeod.
Thanks so much, Tim. I can't thank you enough for taking so much time over this pandemic to spend with me and our stakeholders and industry and sectoral partners. Really grateful for the guidance and advice that you have provided me. I would also like to say thank you to my dedicated team at the ministry, both in my office and in my Deputy Nancy Matthews' office, for their dedication over the past several months. And also those who served on one of the 14 ministerial advisory committees that we've put in place, and many, of course, have indicated it on an ad hoc basis as this pandemic continues for an indeterminate period of time, that they would provide guidance and advice to me on a go forward until we get through this together. Let me say at the outset, I know I'm competing with the Premier's announcement. But as I've done throughout the pandemic, my intention today was to bring everyone together as quickly as possible to respond to questions and concerns about the state of Ontario and how the ministry is pivoting to deal with the healthcare, economic, and social crises. Today, given the second wave of COVID-19, Premier Ford is announcing certain new restrictions to contain and prevent the spread of the virus. As I've said many times, our sectors were hit first, hardest, and will take the longest to recover. This recent wave of the virus has shown us no mercy. Our tourism and cultural attractions and our sport organizations will be impacted both by gathering limits and possibly just as much by the anxiety and fear that are going to come with that. The announcement today includes a series of measures to protect the safety and well-being of Ontarians. The measures today include a provincial mask mandate with certain exceptions for schools, for people with disabilities, and for people eating, drinking, or exercising, as long as they are keeping a respectful distance. Limiting gatherings to 100 indoors for restaurants and all similar establishments. Allowing no more than 6 people at a table in restaurants, bars, banquet halls. Requiring collection of all patrons' contact information, not just one. Enforcing masks and distancing for people lining up outside restaurants. Lowering the gathering limit in gyms to 50 people. Restricting exercise classes to 10 people. Restricting capacity at meetings and event spaces to 50 people per building. You'll know every one of these restrictions impacts our sectors. Apart from these, however, our government is also pausing all reopening plans for another 28 days and limiting social circles to households only. Earlier this week, the ministry has engaged our professional sports organizations, as well as our theme parks, amusement parks, and water parks to work steadily throughout this crisis in order to see what reopening plans will look like after those pauses. I can confirm that this does not impact high performance and professional sports in terms of training, youth sports that have started in the fall, nor film and television sets, or our cinemas. I know that this news is particularly tough, given in many cases we were able to salvage a summer season, and it felt, I think, for many of us that the worst was behind us. However, with COVID-19 cases rising to over 700 today, these measures are necessary to protect Ontarians. As many of you know, I safely toured Ontario for 11 weeks, visiting many of you, going to your community museums, your art galleries, your tourist attractions. I stayed in your hotels. I traveled by rail and air, and I ate at your restaurants. You told me stories. You introduced me to people. You showed me your local jewels. I got to experience all of the agencies and attractions that are aligned to this ministry. I got to meet with so many of you who are so proud of your communities. And I think the hyper-local campaign that the ministry engaged upon with Destination Ontario was a bright spot in a very bleak period. Throughout that time, I was able to highlight $353 million to our agencies and attractions, $83 million to our Ontario Trillium Foundation Resiliency Fund, $21 million for high-performance athletes, $21 million for public libraries, $19 million for our regional tourism organizations, $14.2 million toward hyper-local tourism marketing. And as a side note, I was very happy to see a Destination Northern Ontario ad come on my computer screen earlier today. We invested $9 million in festival funding, $8.1 million for sports organizations, $7 million for the Ontario Music Investment Fund, and just this week, $1.5 million to export Canadian film and television content based on the wide success of Schitt's Creek. In total, we flowed over $528 million, or over $500 million since the pandemic began. And the stability of our film and television tax credit remains strong, and we're committed to the productions that are filling up our studios and film-friendly locations across Ontario. I'll be making further investments over the next several weeks as we prepare for a fall budget, but I wanted to share some new information with all of you today. For sports, we are flowing $3.4 million after reaching an agreement with the federal government, with the understanding additional monies will be made available for Ontario this winter. Details will be made available this week through our sports division. For hyperlocal tourism, we are opening a new $9 million granting stream on October 8th to support safely reconnecting Ontarians during the winter months, specifically around Thanksgiving, Halloween, Hanukkah, Christmas, New Year's, and other special moments that will be far different this year than they have been in the past. I continue to work with the Ministry of Attorney General on civil liability immunity. There is nothing new to report on that at the moment. I have heard your concerns, and I have relayed them to my caucus colleagues and my cabinet colleagues. And on the 30th of October, I will be laying out my strategic vision for the ministry so we can reconnect, recover, rebuild, and eventually reemerge in each of these sectors in a post-COVID-19 environment. This speech will be delivered with the Empire Club of Canada. We're also working to be tabling a fall budget, and there will be additional supports to our sectors at that time. I've been working closely with Minister Rod Phillips and the Ministry of Finance to communicate the needs of our sectors. In fact, we met earlier today, and I'll continue to advocate for these important sectors. These last 7 months have been tough on all of us, and I know today's information will create and cause a great deal of anxiety. But please know, I will continue to be available for your questions and your comments. I will take as many questions as I can today. And to those we do not get to, please remember to email minister.macleod@ontario.ca. And Tim, I'll turn it back over to you, and looking very forward to all of the questions and concerns. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Minister, for the remarks, and difficult news for all of us to hear. I'm sure that everybody appreciates that you're giving them a bit of a preview of what the Premier's going to be saying today, and letting folks know straight up, unvarnished, what this is going to mean for their sectors. And again, I commend you for all that you did over those 11 weeks in the personal tours and helping out while the numbers were better, getting dollars flowing, getting people back on payroll, and me and my family a chance to get out and enjoy our great province. Okay, I'll move first to some of the questions that were pre-submitted, Minister. And again, folks are listening at home. The Minister does take all of your questions. We usually get through a lot, so please press 3 on your phone. Again, press 3 on your phone, and we will queue you up to ask your question directly to the Minister. All right, Minister, here's a general question that came in from Woodstock. It's from Jim Hudson from the Southwest Ontario Tourism Corporation. And basically he says, how will the Ministry's plans be impacted by the changing COVID numbers?
Jim, thanks very much. I appreciate that. It's interesting. I traveled the province safely. Obviously, was down your way and Stratford not too long ago. That was my last, I think, trip on the road. And I was able to explore the province safely with the understanding that if we were safely and gradually reopening the economy, that the establishments that we were visiting were cleared for safe visitation by the Chief Medical Officer of Health, and I did my job and washed my hands, wore my mask, socially and physically distanced. But again, the second wave has come on rapidly, and not unexpectedly, but I think it was a bit more of a rapid fire than we expected. And so there is, without a doubt, the changing COVID numbers require us to continue to be nimble and pivot our policies and our programs. And so we're going to continue to listen to the feedback of folks like yourself and others across the province in each one of your sectors to see how we can best pivot. In some cases, we'll be able to do it. In other cases, it makes it more difficult and a challenge. I'm laying out this 5-year strategic plan, as I said, on the 30th of October with the Empire Club of Canada. And the intention is to make sure that we have contingencies built in for some of the challenges that we're facing. The reality is as well, we continue to do market research, and the numbers or reticence in terms of people getting back to their old routines and behaviors remains high. So it's going to really be contingent on us through first the $9 million fund I'll be announcing next Thursday, and then through additional marketing campaigns through Destination Ontario and the Ministry that we really promote hyper-local. We are really, in my opinion, in a reconnection phase, and that as of today is going to look a lot different than it was 2 or 3 weeks ago. So the Ministry's plans will continually evolve, and we will continue to work with our ministerial advisory committees on an ad hoc basis to see how we can best pivot where possible and make sure that the strategic investments that we have within the Ministry continue to flow, and then map out what the next, I think, 18 months looks like. Because when we come through this, we want to ensure that all of those cultural institutions that we have around the province, are valued by their communities and supported as well. So thanks, Jim. I appreciate that.
You're listening to the Heritage, Sport, Tourism, and Culture Industries Open Town Hall with Minister Lisa MacLeod. She is taking your questions. Press 3 on your phone, and we will queue you up to ask a question directly to the Minister or offer your advice. My name is Tim Hudak, CEO of the Ontario Real Estate Association. All right. I think this is going to be the case. It was sad to think about months ago, Minister, but Jacqueline Surrett from the city of Orillia asked a question. It's on all of our minds. Should the pandemic continue into January 2021, which is likely, how will the Ministry support the sector over the winter months and into festival season?
Yeah, thanks very much, Jacqueline. I really do appreciate that. Obviously, we'll start with getting the $9 million out the door for these virtual or socially distanced or digital reconnection programs. I think that's important. I have to say, there is one opportunity in COVID, and that is the fact that traditionally the province of Ontario would have its big tourism seasons between typically late May to early September, and given COVID-19, it's forcing us to think about how we can reconnect in the winter months. And so when we put forward the strategic plan, we are going to ensure that Ontario is open for business, open for travelers, open for visitors 365 days a year. Now, we recognize with the border closures that we will not be attracting folks from upstate New York or from different parts of the world. We also recognize with the Atlantic bubble, it's unlikely to have a number of other Canadians coming here. But that doesn't mean, as it gets safer to do so at the appropriate time, that we start to do what naturally happened over the summer, which is people exploring safely in their own backyard. And so we continue to work with all of our regional tourism organizations, Destination Ontario. Last night I had a federal, provincial, territorial meeting with all of the tourism ministers across the country, and we talked specifically about how do we really engage as a year-round destination. So it is on top of mind. We're going to continue to do that, but at the moment we're cautioning all Ontarians to make sure that they adhere to the new rules that were just announced today by our Premier, and which is, don't travel if you have been ill or experiencing symptoms. Bring essential supplies with yourself. Continue to follow public health advice, including physical distancing, limiting close contact to your own social circle, and just make sure that you continue to check out what the local restrictions are. But again, I think we provided a lot of clarity today based on the new numbers of COVID-19, that the winter months this year will look a lot different than they have in the past.
All right, thank you, Ms. MacLeod. We'll go to our first live question. Again, if you want to ask a question directly with Minister live on this town hall, hit 3 on your phone. And when we go to you, please state your name, what part of the province you're from, and your business. First question is from Bob.
Hello. Hello, Minister, and we appreciate
Hey, Bob.
Yes, appreciate you taking this time and taking my call again. I'm the president of NODO. I'm here in Sault Ste. Marie, and I have Garson's Flying Outpost. I'm wondering, as some businesses weren't able to take advantage of the domestic travel and capture that this season, looking forward to next season, these operators that were unable to open due to some of the various reasons, border and so on, will there be any aid to help them get started next year, even that they'll require it? Because a lot of them have taken deposits and old trips, whether that happens or not, but they probably long since spent that money this year, and next year to get started they're going to require some aid. And I know you've been fighting to get us aid, and we hope that we get some, but there are a lot of concerned operators out there.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So for the folks that might not be in the tourism industry and they might be in sport, Bob works with the outfitters up in Northern Ontario, and they are typically populated by American travelers. And of course, we right now have a closure on the border, and I think we all understand that, and I certainly support it. We'll continue to work with Destination Northern Ontario to see how we can effectively get folks to start supporting hyperlocal. And I thought today, CTV Ottawa running an ad for Destination Ontario, I think that halo marketing that we're doing is important and amplifying that support. I know that Minister Greg Rickford, the Minister of Northern Development and Mines, through the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund, is looking at some targeted investments in order to support out the Northern Ontario outfitters. And of course, we do have 2 budgets coming up, one in the fall, and then of course we'll get back to the regular schedule hopefully sometime next spring. And so additional business supports will be made at the appropriate time through a variety of different ministries. So we continue to build out that program and that plan, and obviously we're well aware of the significant challenges faced in Northern Ontario at the moment, and at the same time recognizing that pretty much every single person on this phone call is just hit pretty hard, and and of course we don't know how long this will last, and we don't know what a vaccine or an effective treatment will look like, and we don't know if this will really extremely prolong the inhibitions that many people have with respect to social gatherings again. So I'll leave it at that, Bob, but I appreciate you being on here, and I'm looking forward. I was supposed to go up with Ross to the Sioux. I think it was actually supposed to have been today, but he and I are in different bubbles at cohorts at the legislature, so we weren't allowed to meet. So thank you very much.
All right, Bob, good to hear your voice again, a regular on these town halls representing Northern Tourism Operators. Thank you for your leadership. Next, Minister, we have David Tom calling in. He has a question around attendance at sports events.
Hi, good afternoon, Minister. Thank you for taking my call. It's David Tom. I'm the president of Tom Partners Sports and Entertainment Marketing in King City. And my question is, and I may have missed it in your announcement, I apologize, but I'm just wondering with today's announcement, if you have an estimate of the traffic we could expect at a hockey arena, community-level arena, at this time. It was, I think, at about 50 per building per hour. And then I think in some cases it went from that to 50 per ice pad in multiple ice pad buildings if they staggered the ice time hours or had separate entrances. So I'm just wondering today, where does it stand today, if you know that, in terms of attendance at a hockey arena at the community level?
Yeah, so there will be no impact on children playing sports or that, but in terms of the guidelines, that will be you'll have to adhere to those. I do not anticipate fans at hockey games. Earlier today, I met with the Ottawa Senators, the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Ottawa Red Blacks, and I think one others. We're really looking at, even they have massive capacity, but we're not looking at that. So I think it's safe to say that in order to keep people safe, that we continue to follow these guidelines and these limits. And so just so everyone's aware, we're restricting capacity at event spaces to 50 people per building.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Minister, and for the question. Again, press 3 on your phone. You can ask a question, as you've seen. Thank you to both gentlemen for saying where they're from in the province and who they represent. I'm going to go to a very important question, too. I know a lot of folks' minds, Minister. You had mentioned this earlier on. That's the status of the border. Kimberly Viney from the Niagara Parks Commission in Niagara Falls asks for an update, please, on border openings.
Yeah, so I mean, I suspect fully that the border closures will be extended until this is contained. I think it would be irresponsible for us to ask the federal government to open up the border at this moment. We have 732 cases here in Ontario today, and we've just come out with a great deal of restrictions in order to prevent the spread of COVID-19. So I don't see that happening at any time soon. And I think, the Premier has been very clear that in order for us to best protect each other and ensure that our hospital capacity is not overburdened is by continuing to restrict this. I do not expect international travel to the province of Ontario to be back to 2019 levels for another 4 or 5 years, and I think that that's realistic.
Thank you, Minister, for the very direct answer on that. Again, the Minister of Heritage, Sport, Tourism, and Culture Industries, Minister Lisa MacLeod, is taking your questions. We're about halfway through, so please do hit 3 on your phone. Plenty of time to take live questions here today. This is the 9th telephone town hall that Minister MacLeod has done, so we've probably had, I think, Minister, several thousand people on these calls. We have 700 folks on the line today across the province of Ontario, so good for you to reach out to so many folks.
Yeah, thanks. It's good to have so many people on, and I know they're all from different sectors, but one of the things I think that has really helped get me through this this pandemic is being able to see the great integration that each of these sectors have with one another. So maybe sometimes you don't see it at the provincial level, but certainly when you go into any community across Ontario, whether it's my city of Ottawa or you go Niagara Falls, it's all the people that are involved in sports and culture and arts and heritage and tourism that really sort of seem to be on all of the committees together, that seem to have the social and economic outlook of that community together. So I think that's really kind of a nice thing, and so we're going to keep on leveraging that and maximizing it.
Yeah, so much beauty and talent and history and culture to celebrate, and entrepreneurs driving it every day across our province. And speaking of which, another entrepreneur on the call. This is Aaron. Let's queue up Aaron next, who has a question regarding Northern Ontario tourism and reopening plans. Aaron, go ahead.
Hello?
Go ahead, Aaron.
Okay. Hi, Minister. I work at our local information center, and at the moment we are outside working from a pop-up tent. However, I know with the cold weather coming, it's important that we get back into our building. With the announcement today of reopening being paused, how will this affect us getting inside, which is kind of important in our region?
Well, look, we've got a massive pandemic going on. The Chief Medical Officer of Health has made serious recommendations to the government, and the government has, indicated that we are following that medical advice, which requires us to limit our physical interactions and social gatherings. And so I know everyone wants to go back to where we were a year ago today, but we simply are not there. The situation is worsening, and I think it is incumbent upon all of us to focus on those health and safety measures that are in place. And, in many cases, even in my own office, I've now split the office in Ottawa and Toronto into two different cohorts, just to limit the probability of the spread for our team. And the legislature, we're now in different cohorts as well. So my recommendation is to follow the Chief Medical Officer of Health. And again, this is a very difficult time in the sense that we cannot determine when this will be over.
All right, Minister, we've gone from Northern Ontario, from Niagara. Let's now head down Highway 3 to another border city in Windsor. Justin LaFontaine from the Ontario Tourism Innovation Lab says, "Thank you, Minister, for your continued leadership and support for Ontario's tourism industry. I was wondering what the current status is of the Tourism Development Fund." He couldn't find that information on the ministry website and wonders what the status is of the Tourism Development Fund.
Well, thanks very much. We believe it's been oversubscribed. Receiving a briefing on it this week. I'd asked for it 2 weeks ago, so we'll try and get that information out to you. I do know that it has been subscribed by 93 different folks who are interested in accessing that $1.5 million fund, and so hopefully we'll be starting to get recipients notified as soon as possible once we have a formal look at that. And just really pleased with the intake of that, and I think it's something obviously that we'd love to continue in outer years as well, and possibly even enhancing it. So appreciate that question. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Okay, one area we have not had a chance to touch on as of yet was live music. So Victoria Shepherd from the Canadian Live Music Association out of Ottawa says, "What is the government doing to support the live music industry?"
Yeah, thanks, Victoria. Appreciate that. I wish that we could do lots more, because I know your industry has been absolutely decimated. But let me tell you what we've done to date, and to let you know that we're continuing to look at best ways we could support more folks. So we did invest in Music Together with the music industry. Our $350,000 investment was matched by the music industry with that $350,000. They were able to accept more donations, and as a result of that, 310 musicians and musical acts across the province were able to access cash and sell their merchandise through the musictogether.ca platform. I have reached out to them because the program is set to shut down, to see how we might continue that or some other type of format so that we can continue to have music content from Ontario on the airwaves, okay? And I think that's absolutely critical. And we also launched, as you know, Ontario.live, and Ontario.live has been a host to that platform of Music Together. And through our discussions with our agency Destination Ontario, we're looking at really maximizing that and adding some advertising money toward that. So that was very positive. And the other thing is we continue to flow money through Celebrate to that $9 million that has already gone out the door, in addition to the additional $9 million that we're putting forward next week. And then we have two other funds that have assisted the live music industry. The first is the Ontario Music Investment Fund, which we're very supportive of. And the second was the Ontario Trillium Foundation, which has an $83 million resiliency fund. And so we continue to have these conversations. This is an area that my colleagues and I are obviously very interested in. We know, just having the week we did 2 weeks ago in the culture industries in the province of Ontario, sweeping at the Emmys, Roberta Battaglia placing fourth on America's Got Talent, and then, of course, many of our Ontario artists winning big at the Canadian Country Music Awards, I think signals that we have to continue to support these sectors. I believe economic recovery and social recovery will be a result of a strong and vibrant cultural and arts industry, and so therefore, and we'll do a great deal for the social recovery, obviously, of everyone. So we're going to continue to do that, and I really appreciate that, Victoria. I know you and Aaron have been working very, very hard and trying to support everyone as best as you possibly can during these challenging times. So thank you very much.
Again, thanks to all the folks in the heritage, sport, tourism, and culture industries joining this call today. Well over 700 on the call and well over 7,000 in the series of telephone town halls the minister has done. Again, please press number 3 on your phone to queue up to ask the minister a question. We've got about 20 minutes left in the session, and she always enjoys taking these live questions, as you've heard. I'm going to play the host card here, Minister, and throw in my own live question, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
I thought, as I said, I think it's great that you were leading the way, leading by example, inspiring Ontarians to celebrate what we have in our own backyard. You did 11 weeks on tour. Why don't you just share with us some of the things that stick out in your mind when you look back over the summer? Like, what are some of your fonder memories of the things that you saw when you traveled across the province?
Yeah, let me just go across the province then. So when I was in Ottawa, here at home, I had never kayaked down the Ottawa River, and I got the opportunity to do that. I'd whitewater rafted or rafted, but I'd never done the kayak. It was incredible. I got to see, my city from a different angle. And then I also did the biplane. We did those both with Michael Crockett, who's president and CEO of our Ottawa Tourism. So if ever you're coming to Ottawa, I know folks always think, well, we're the seat of Parliament and that's all there is. There's so many terrific things you can experience here in Ottawa. I went down to visit Upper Canada Village and fed the fish with Jim Massadal, the MPP there, and Holly Q, who's our CEO and president of Upper Canada Village, of St. Lawrence Parks Commission, which was absolutely incredible. Really tremendously enjoyed that. Visited Brockville with MPP Steve Clark, who went out for a boat cruise on the Thousand Islands. He's the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and we had his local mayor and councillors out visiting with us, which was really, really nice. Spent a wonderful day in Kingston. I love Kingston. I did a boat. I went on a boat, but then we actually did a trolley ride, and historical tour around Kingston. Canada, it's the birthplace of Sir John A. Macdonald. You have Kingston Pen there. Some of the most notorious criminals in Canadian history were there, and then it's the first Parliament of our country. So that was really, really fun. I went to Belleville with MPP and Minister Todd Smith. Enjoyed going to their local museum there. It's absolutely stunning and gorgeous. So if you're ever in Belleville, look up their cultural institutions. One of the coolest things I did was with David Piccini in Port Hope. He's the MPP there, and he and I went to a place called Haute Goat, and we played with baby goats, like they're little miniature goats, and it was a really spectacular visit. Went to the aquarium in Toronto, did some bike riding in Toronto. Don't have the courage yet to do the skywalk or whatever that is at at CN Tower. But that was kind of cool. But what was really nice was I did 2 film festivals. The first of its kind, the drive-in entertainment in the country was the Lavazza Film Festival, which the ministry funded, and then of course TIFF. And TIFF was completely reimagined this year, but it was spectacular. Looking out at the Toronto skyline. And of course, I'm so proud of Ontario Place as the minister responsible for it. So that was great. Headed down to Niagara a couple of times. I did the zip line, Tim, on Niagara Falls with the mayor of Niagara Falls, Jim Diodati, and I am still living to tell. I actually show everybody the picture. It was a lot of fun. Had a visit over to the Shaw Festival. Visited with the folks in Niagara on the Lake, so that was really nice, and got to see the wine region. Ended up in Windsor once with Mayor Drew Dilkins and my friend Gordon Orr, who runs tourism up there, and they have a spectacular place that hopefully will someday be open to the public again, where Hiram Walker had his offices. And so cool thing is there's actually a little tunnel that was dug between Windsor and Detroit back in the olden days to shuttle for the bootleggers, I guess. And so you get to see a little bit of it. They've obviously since closed it down, but Al Capone actually was a frequenter there in Windsor.
That's
so
wild.
That was it was really cool. I did a couple of historic villages with MPP Donna Skelly and Minister Jeff Urich, and then went up north, and I really enjoyed it. I spent a whole week in the north, and I made a small investment but a meaningful one to the Dion Quintuplets Museum with Minister Vic Fideli. Went over to Sudbury and saw my buddy Guy Levine, who is the president and CEO of our Science North, and so I got to go to the Big Nickel. And then they took me down in a mine, which was very cool, and everybody can access that sort of thing. Went over to the Sioux with Ross Romano, and I had an opportunity to go kayaking with him and visit an Indigenous island, and then rounded up my trip up north to Thunder Bay. And so I did all this with David McLaughlin, who's our president and CEO of Destination Northern Ontario. And when I was there, we have an attraction in Thunder Bay, the Fort William, and did some canoeing there. It was amazing. And then I went to this most beautiful Indigenous art gallery in Thunder Bay, and it was so remarkable. I just enjoyed my whole time. So, and then I went to Sauble Beach for the first time in my life, and Port Stanley for the first time in my life, and to Goderich for the second time. And so, and of course, I went to Blue Mountain. I'm so sorry if I've forgotten somewhere, because everything was so absolutely incredible that I want you all to come with me. I want to have one of these friends and family tours. You shouldn't have gotten me started on this.
No, it's great to hear the enthusiasm in your voice, and paraphrase Johnny Cash. You've been everywhere, sir.
Yes,
Miller. Miller and Maitland and I really like to spend some time in Southwestern Ontario ourselves, and we really like going to see a lot of historic sites back home in Niagara. So that was a blast for us. And actually, it's a good segue to our next caller. Actually, we do have Marie Lalonde calling in from the Ontario Museum Association. So let's just go right to the historic site. Marie, the floor is yours.
Thank you. You can hear me?
I
Perfect.
can hear you. How are you?
Okay, terrific. I'm very well, Minister. Thank you so much again for these town halls and for all the work that's being done. I'm so glad, and as are all the members, of course, that you've been able to visit so many of them and the wonderful things they're offering, and want to continue to offer, obviously. And again, I just want to reiterate that the OMA and museums in every community across the province are really eager and want to work with you and the government on recovery for everyone. And as essential parts of the hyper-local offer, if you will, museums are eager to reopen, but of course we have had, as everyone, tremendous difficulties and challenges, and we have about 50% of our museums have been able to reopen to some extent, but we've got so many that are still very hopeful that they will have the resources to do so, and of course within a safe public situation. So my question is to encourage, I guess, and request any information about particular support that would be for our community museum.
Yeah, thanks, Marie. Like, what an incredible opportunity I had to be able to visit so many wonderful places and spaces over the past summer. And so just a couple points on that. The ministry is reviewing how we can best support our community museums. So we'll have more to say about that. There's a few different areas that we're focused on. And, of course, we're going to continue to work with our federal counterparts as well. They've announced a significant amount of money in the throne speech. So we're just waiting on the details to see what that means. If there is a request for matching funds, that sort of stuff. So we're letting them develop that policy, and we'll figure out how we can best enhance and support that. We are investing as a province significantly into broadband. One of the things that I found throughout the summer when I was out visiting is, being on a cabinet call or a caucus call or a stakeholder call, a lot of dropped calls because we need to expand broadband into the rural areas. And so that also becomes more critical when you have a lot of content in an incredible museum that needs to be seen by other people, but you don't have the capacity to build on that simply because of the limited exposure. So we are going to be making a significant investment into that. The 2 points I just want to raise, though, as I close out on this question, Marie, is making sure, because we know from the data that if I were to say today all the museums in Ontario were open, it would be so vague to a lot of people, and they're very concerned about what's happening in their own community and in their own household. But if you say, for example, and I'll use my local museum, the Nepean Museum, is open and they need your support, well, that's a great opportunity, right, to do that. And so just make sure you're marketing to your local members and talking to them. In fact, I just today bought a seat at the Bruce County Museum. They were raising money by selling seats, and I thought it would be kind of cool to tell Ministers Thompson and Walker that I, too, have a seat in Bruce County. As a little joke, that's what we call when we run for a constituency, we call it our seat. And then just finally, I think my message to you guys has been very consistent in everything you do, regardless if you're in the hospitality sector or the heritage sector or what have you, is you should always demonstrate how to safely experience and explore your own community. And so I would really reiterate that. It's just to demonstrate online and through your media posts, etc., that it's a safe experience when you open the door. We would not, as a province, have lifted restrictions in those cases if it weren't safe to do so, and we have not imposed any further restrictions on them at this time. So I think it's safe to say, as long as you're following the guidelines, you should be encouraging people to safely experience and explore your assets.
You're listening to the telephone town hall featuring the Minister of Heritage, Sport, Tourism, and Culture Industries, Lisa MacLeod. It's our 9th town hall, and we have over 700 people on the call today. So please, 700 of you, we've had, about 12 questions so far. Still time. Hit 3 on your phone and ask the Minister a question or give her your advice on the time ahead. I'm going to give a shout-out to MPP and Minister Bill Walker. Minister, he just texted me that you're doing a great job and was thrilled that you're going to have a seat in Bruce County to make that a powerful group of 3 MPPs from people parts of the province.
Yeah, and you know what I forgot to tell you is I did this zip coaster with Billy when we were up at Stable Beach. I did the zip line in Niagara, and I did this zip coaster, and it was the most incredible thing. And I encourage everybody to go there.
Well, and I know he's going to try to get you out for Wired and Willie come February of 2021. All right, so next question is from Jeffrey. Again, folks, if you want to be like Jeffrey and ask a question, Minister, hit 3 on your phone. Sorry, Jeremy. And Jeremy has a question about winter programming. Jeremy, welcome to the town hall. Please go ahead.
Thanks for taking my call, Minister.
Thanks, Jeremy.
I co-produce Hamilton Winterfest, the city of Hamilton, and about weekly I get a request for what my programming plan is. And it's extremely hard to program with days like today where the rules change again, and with the whole world of sponsorship being basically decimated. So I was curious about your mention earlier about funding specifically for winter programming and whether that will pull through into 2021 or whether it's strictly focused on events from now till the new year.
We are going to, thanks, Jeremy, and I know it's very difficult to determine how to plan at the moment, given the changing circumstances we continue to see ourselves in. So the $9 million fund that we will be opening will run retroactively to August the 12th. We recognize that there were events that occurred, and I believe, and if I could be corrected if I am wrong, I don't have the details in front of me, but I believe it will go until the end of this fiscal year, so the end of March, and we just want to make sure that people are safely connecting, and in order to safely connect, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a physical event. It could be virtual, so my staff are telling me, yes, I'm correct in the time. So again, we'll retroactive to August the 12th to March the 31st.
So as Minister said in her opening remarks on October 30th, she'll be laying out her plan for the heritage, culture, sport, and tourism sectors at the very important stage of the Empire Club. Obviously, there's new restrictions that will probably be broadcast virtually as opposed to in person. So I'd encourage you to stay tuned to that and figure out how you get that information through the Empire Club to see the Minister lay out the plans ahead. Okay, well, let's get to the hospitality sector here, Minister. I have a submitted question from Christina Mann. And Christina is with the County of Wellington out of Guelph. She asks, what supports are being put in place for the food service and dining industry?
Yeah, thanks very much, Christina. I can tell you with 100% confidence this is something that our Premier, Doug Ford, thinks about all the time. Yesterday, he and I were with the Oakville Chamber of Commerce, and he took a number of questions from the food service sector, worried about, of course, your hydro bills, rent, looking at in terms of dine-in service. And I know, he indicated there that he has spoken at length with the Deputy Prime Minister and Federal Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland about supports. And I want you to know that last evening at our federal, provincial, and territorial meeting with Minister Joly, I, too, raised the issue of restaurants, banquet halls, and the like in getting support. So we recognize how difficult this is. I was happy last week to speak with ORMA, with Tony Alenis, and do at their AGM, and to learn about their Dine Safe model. So we want to continue to support efforts like that, and really revolutionize the restaurant industry throughout this process. So we're committed to working with him. We've announced a $100,000 commitment to the Ontario Culinary Tourism Alliance in order to get them to run a marketing campaign that will kick off this month, and very excited about that. We have extended the Ontario Wine and Grape Strategy to 2021 to 2022. So that means about $7.5 million for VQA support, $4.8 million for marketing and promotion, $250,000 for research, and $250,000 for benchmarking. We're going to extend the small cidery and small distillery support program to 2021 to 2022, which is about $2.6 million. And then we're going to pause increases to beer and wine taxes previously scheduled to take effect in the spring of 2020. In addition, we did allow licensed restaurants and bars to sell alcohol with food takeout and delivery, and that has proven to be quite popular. And of course, I think the patios, and even in the winter months, I think that we'll continue to see if there's ways. I know today's announcement is difficult with 6 patrons per table and a limit of 100 inside. And so we just want to make sure that we're continuing to work with you and just support all of your efforts. But thank you very much, Christina. And I know I encourage everyone to go out and support your local restaurants. I try to get out a few times a week and support it. So if you're able to do that, I certainly would encourage it.
So I got a couple of very specific questions, so I'd like to rifle through them quickly. One's from Angela Asher from Actor Toronto. Angela says she was thrilled to hear the announcement on Monday, the 28th of September, of the commitment of $1.3 million to export our content. Could you please elaborate for us how that money will be used and where it will be allotted? She adds, thank you for being an ongoing champion of our industry, ! We appreciate you more than you know. Well, that's very nice. So that question for Angela, and we've got another one coming up on Quest for Gold.
Okay, I'll be very quick. Angela, thank you. That's a very nice compliment. Sometimes you need that, and I really appreciate it. We just announced $1.3 million through Ontario Creates, so 99 organizations will be eligible to take their film, television, and digital content to audiences around the world. So just building off that wonderful success of Schitt's Creek, this will actually help support export development and activities to help businesses build their capacity and their market sales, and then strengthen and stimulate economic growth. So for film and television export, we're spending $600,000. Industry development is $436,000, and interactive digital media is $117,000. I'm not going to bigfoot something next week, but I will be making another announcement with respect to our cultural industries in order to support them on a go-forward basis. I want to reiterate the stability of our film and television tax credits. I have a ministerial advisory committee panel that reports to both myself and the Minister of Finance, and we are committed to ensuring that those tax credits remain stable. And we want to make sure we can continue to compete, not just with Quebec and Vancouver and British Columbia, but basically with other jurisdictions around the world. We had good news in 2019, 2020 when we grew the film industry, and I don't say we as in me, but as we as in the province of Ontario, as in the people who build that industry. We grew $200 million, and that was pretty significant. And just being on a film set, I've been on a few in the last couple of weeks. We're booked like crazy, so we're going to continue to support this vibrant sector.
Okay, next question here. Glenn Lethbridge, the Ontario Sailing Association under Hamilton says, what is happening with this year's Quest for Gold program as money's released last few weeks from the last fiscal year?
Yeah, so we put out $8.1 million to our provincial sport organizations and an additional $21 million for our high-performance athletes. And so we wanted to make sure that of that, we were able to support this year 1,438 high-performance athletes. But we also wanted to make sure we supported the Canadian Sport Institute of Ontario, which is where Penny Alexiak swims. We had an operation early in the pandemic, trying to get we called it Operation Penny in the Pool, because we wanted her to be able to compete, hopefully in Tokyo this year. That will remain unchanged. We also supported Coaches Ontario, so that we would be able to provide them with the best support possible. So that money has flowed. Those announcements have been made. Those athletes have been notified that they have been supported. That is 558 national athletes and 880 provincial level athletes. And we continue to work with organizations like the Canadian Olympic Committee, like David Schumacher and others, to see how we can continue to support our athletes. I always say that this is the ministry that tops podiums, tops charts, and tops ratings. So each of those areas we are going to make sure are considered widely as the ministry works toward developing that strategic 5-year plan. But we want to make sure that when our athletes go to the Olympics, that they've got a gold medal.
We're listening to the Town Hall with Minister Lisa MacLeod, the Minister for Heritage, Sport, Tourism, Culture, and Industries, her 9th such Town Hall. She has a big announcement coming up on October 30th as well, the Empire Club, her vision for the ministry in the time ahead. And I'm Tim Hudak. I'm the CEO of the Ontario Real Estate Association, and very pleased and honored to be the host here today. Actually, on the realtor front, I hear this all the time. The number of any guest minister, the number one question realtors in cottage country are getting right now.
Oh, you know what? I can only imagine. Like, I just, there, even like in Ottawa, like the housing market is crazy. I bet you in rural Ontario and cottage country, it's through the roof.
Business is doing well for sure. Homeownership, a great investment. And the top question that our realtors in cottage country get right now is, does this place have broadband access? What's the internet like? And we got a question here on that topic actually from Leslie Thompson. So I totally sympathize with it. Leslie's with the Cornwall and the County's Community Futures Development Corporation out of Cornwall. So here's her question, Minister, in that regard. How is your ministry addressing the rural broadband infrastructure issue? Rural communities are not able to take advantage of digital and tech because they have no internet. Tourism industries are affected along with all the other industries. Minister, your response.
Well, so excellent question, because it's not just tourism that's affected. It's film and television, it's animation, interactive and digital media. All of the things that we do within this ministry really do require, access to broadband. So, great question, Leslie. I had a great conversation yesterday with the Minister of Infrastructure, the Honourable Lisa Scott. who, of course, I had the opportunity to visit up her way as well. Stopped in at Corthaderry, actually. And I can say that she's absolutely committed to that. The Premier has been very clear. There's no infrastructure project more important to the people of Ontario than broadband. And that's why we stepped up the plate to deliver on that commitment. So last summer, we announced our 5-year broadband and cellular action plan, Up to Speed it's called, investing $315 million in collaboration with the private sector and other partner funding. We expect that to generate up to $1 billion in total investment over the next 5 years. And the investment will include $71 million for the Eastern Ontario Rural Regional Network project that creates, I think, about 3,000 jobs over the next 10 years. $63.7 million to the Southwestern Integrated Fiber Technology, they call that SWIFT, and $150 million for a new broadband program called Improving Connectivity for Ontario, or ICON, and a new $150 million program to support local collaborative projects. So I think this is a very important issue for all of us, particularly as we go digital and virtual over the next several years, and one that we're absolutely committed to working with. And I do know I have, I'm not going to bigfoot this, but I do believe I have another announcement coming down the pipe as well on this particular issue as it pertains to our sector. So stay tuned for that.
All right, I'm going to try to squeeze in one last quick question before closing comments. Minister and Councillor Janet Richter. Janet is with the Ontario Snowbird Association out of Collingwood. And Janet asks, do you have an update on the sport hosting program?
Yeah, I just received a briefing on it. I believe we had 27 projects that we've received applications for, and so we're continuing to review those. We want to make sure that this program is viable into the future. And Janet, I'm going to tell you something. Of all the programs we have, this is one of my favorite, because I feel it really speaks to everything that this ministry does. Sport hosting it generates tourism. It generates cultural abilities to bring in live music. It is very much film friendly, so a lot of it goes on television, and it really is about sport as well. So it's really great. We invest about $3 million a year on sport hosting, but it looks, as I've instructed my team in this 5-year strategic plan, sport hosting should take a really a place of importance. And think about the events that we will potentially be competing for. FIFA World Cup. Hamilton's talking about the Commonwealth Games. We're looking in Ottawa here at the World Men's Curling Championships, which have been postponed. But these are the types of events we want to bring to Ontario when it is safe to do so. And so we will be looking at great strategic investments. And so I don't know if you have a plan or a one that's in. I think that we could have a further conversation, but applications submitted during intake 1 are right now under that consideration. So thanks very much. That's great question. We have time for one more.
Thank you. Yeah, the clock on the wall says 2. Do you want to do one more?
Yeah, let's do one more. I don't need closing comments. I want to get it to as many people as possible.
All right, the last one I've got in my pre-submitted questions. You've gone through all of them. The last one's from Miriam Kramer from OCAD University in Toronto. Miriam's question is, what role can they play, and what is Ontario doing to support emerging creatives?
Great question. So we have the Ontario Arts Council has a $60 million fund through the ministry, and one of the things that they did is they did a 1-year, $1.6 million arts responsive initiative. In addition, the Ontario Trillium Foundation, as I mentioned, had an $83 million Resilient Communities Fund to go to not-for-profits, including those in the arts sector. And we retooled the $7 million Ontario Music Investment Fund to put more money into the sector's hands immediately. So we have invested quite a bit of money into the arts and culture sectors, but we can also do more without money too, and it's creating those opportunities. And one of the things I'm excited about as we move forward as a ministry is looking at how we encourage more people of different backgrounds and diversity to be part of that. And so the ministry is looking at that right now. But we're always interested. One of the cool things that I saw throughout this pandemic was the Toronto Symphony Orchestra. I was telling the Finance Minister, Rod Phillips, this today. So the Toronto Symphony Orchestra obviously cannot continue to perform, and I hope Matthew Loden's on the call so I can give him a shout out. But he introduced me to the Toronto Symphony Orchestra's youth orchestra. And the youth orchestra, if you can believe it, was working with, I believe it's Baycrest in Toronto, long-term care setting, and providing beautiful music to these seniors. And we know, the Sergio Navarrete has just done the Cuban movie about a long-term care setting with a dementia patient, and how music sort of really calmed him down and took him, helped him, through this time. And so I thought it was really nice that they were doing it. So we're trying to encourage the other ministries to take a look at what they're doing with Toronto Symphony Orchestra. And the other cool thing is Murdoch Ministries, Christina Jennings is on the line, President and CEO of Shaftesbury, great friend of mine, executive producer of Murdoch Ministries, invited the Toronto Symphony Orchestra on their set. I think it was last Friday night. So it's really kind of nice to see the collaboration between different sectors within not only the arts and culture community, but within all of this ministry, and how we can best support each other. So anybody has any ideas, we're always open to them at this ministry, and you can always send me a question or a comment at minister.macleod@ontario.ca.
Well, thank you very much, Minister. That concludes all the questions I had pre-submitted, all the questions that people have been waiting to ask online. Let me just say, as we wrap up here, and I'll give you last comments, just want to say thank you. It's very impressive how during the roughest times, the darkest times during COVID, the better times, and again now when we're receiving some tough news, that you have always been there. You've been there for the folks on this call. You listen, and then you go to bat for them. Many others would duck. They'd hide during the difficult times and be there for the good only. You've been there through and through. So thank you for that, and thank you for answering all of those questions here today and championing the women, men, and businesses in these important sectors. I will give you, Minister, final comments.
Well, thanks, Tim, and thanks to everybody that's on this call today. These have been very difficult times, and I have to say, I think many of you know me personally. I was kind of a little down delivering some messages today, and I think as we got going and you started reminding me of all these wonderful programs we have and all the wonderful people and the things that I've seen across this province, you really lifted my spirits up today, so I really am grateful to all of you for that. I want you all to keep doing what you do best, which is making our province a great place to live, to work, and to play, to keep shaping the young minds in the arts and culture and sports sectors. And I know some of you in the tourism sector and the live music sector right now, and certainly in the food service industry, are particularly hard hit. And I want you to know I fully support you. We're going to do whatever we can in these sectors at this time. But I'm very, very proud to be the Minister of Heritage, Sport, Tourism and Culture in the province of Ontario. And these have been difficult times, but I worked with the most remarkable people in the world. So thank you, Tim, and thank you to all of you for everything that you've done.
You bet, and thank you, Minister. Again, folks, stay tuned to the Minister's speech on the Empire Club stage of Canada, one of Canada's most prominent stages for public discourse, on October 30th, where she'll lay out her strategic vision for the ministry to help reconnect, recover, rebuild, and re-emerge in each of these sectors. Thank you so much for your great questions today, your participation in this 9th telephone town hall. The ministry staff will take any further questions that you have or you have submitted to help inform the communications going forward. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Minister, for today's informative call.
Thank you again to everyone for joining us. If you have any questions or any feedback that you would like to share with Minister MacLeod and the ministry, you can do so by emailing minister.macleod@ontario.ca. Just a reminder, you can email your questions and feedback to us at minister.macleod@ontario.ca. Thank you again for joining us.